I'm 62 this year, I'm eligible to file. It kind of came as a shock to me. So that's when I started digging into what exactly the Social Security is all about and how it works. And the more I dug, the more confusing it got. So I'm trying to come up with some simple parameters and some questions that we need answered to figure out what to do. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of Social Security, not a lot about the history, but just how it got to where it is today. We're going to talk about what happens in 2033 to trust funds and the benefits, and then some different ways of thinking about this. Social Security is pay as you go. So the money that I'm paying into Social Security today is paying my dad's benefits. So my Social Security tax pays my dad's, as does my daughter's. So the way it's worked since inception, and the law says that every dollar that comes in to Social Security through Social Security tax goes to pay benefits. Okay? If more dollars come in than there are benefits being paid, then the balance can be saved. And it's put into what's called the Social Security Trust Fund, which then buys these special issue Treasury securities. Okay? So it's not Treasury bonds that you and I can buy on the open bond market. For the Social Security Trust Fund only. So basically the Social Security Trust Fund is lending money to the government at what turns out to be a pretty favorable rate. Okay? So as long as there was more money coming in than had to go out, that trust fund continued to build up. And that changed here about 10 years ago, and we'll look into it. But right now, there's more money going out, being paid out in Social Security benefits, and it's coming in through Social Security taxes, and that trust fund is being tapped into to make up the difference. There is no legal contractual obligation for the Social Security Department administration to pay us the benefits that we see on our Social Security statement. So it's not our money, gentlemen. That money's been spent. The money we put in has been spent, it's been earmarked, and I can't sue them for it. I can't get a direct rollover of the net present value of my Social Security account because there is no Social Security account. And according to the Supreme Court in 1960, I cannot sue the Social Security Administration for benefits, if for whatever reason I thought I
And
needed to.
the interest being paid is coming from the other taxpayer.
Mm-hmm. There's a whole, and so the interest being paid on the special issue Treasury securities is coming from taxes that we're all paying on income tax and other federal taxes. So there's a whole lot, there's a whole lot of money switching hands all within the U.S. federal government. And that's part of the problem. Most people aren't aware of that, and most people think that they, I was at a party with a guy talking Social Security, he says, well, it's my money. And I tried to tell him, it's not, but I'm entitled to it. Well, you may be, but it's not your money. What it is a promise. Congress has changed the rules of the game periodically over the years. The Congress will determine what the benefits are, what the taxes are, but you have to be eligible for benefits. All those things are up in the air. So when people say, well, what's going to happen? It's up to Congress. But the gist of it is, back in 1945, in 1937, there was a 2% tax. 45, there were 40 workers to retirees, so 40 people would pay into the system for one person to take out. And they paid a tax of 2% plus the employer. Well, 2% including the employer. So the employee paid one, the employer paid one, and there was 40 employees, so one retiree could get it out. That tax rate has since gone from 2% to 12.4%. Today there's 3 workers for every retiree. There's 3 people paying in for only one person to take it out. And it replaces about 40% of your pre-retirement income. So Social Security was never designed for you to retire on. At best, 40% of your income will be replaced. And today, by 2030, there'll be less than 2 workers paying in for every recipient. The demographics are brutal for Social Security. And as we're seeing declining birth rates, we're seeing people have families later, we're seeing that ratio, that 40% replacement is unlikely to hold up. Certainly not for our kids. So what we're trying to get people to realize is they cannot rely on Social Security to be what it has been. I'm not going to get out of Social Security what my dad does, and my daughters aren't going to get nearly what I might get out. Yes, sir.
Some of the articles I've read, they're talking about 20% reduction.
Hold that thought.
Yeah.
Hold that thought.
It's some date.
Well, I'll tell you what that date is. That date is 2033. Okay? So as I said, since the beginning, it's pay as you go, right? The money that comes in first has to get paid out. If there's anything left, it goes in the trust fund. Well, up until 2010, there was excess to be added to the trust fund. So every year taxes would come in, benefits would be paid, and there was more to add to the trust fund. And the trust fund balances went up nicely. Okay? Starting about 2010, they had to start taking money out of the trust fund, but it was still growing due to the interest it got. That stopped in 2020. So starting in 2020, the actual balance of those trust funds started to decline because even less money coming in, even more money going out, the interest couldn't cover it, and now 2025 picked it up. So the trust funds are predicted to reach zero in 2033, okay? Which means benefits by law cannot exceed income. Now, Congress can change the law. But right now, so Social Security doesn't bankrupt or disappear, benefits don't go to zero, but they could be cut by close to 20%. Under the current rules, if you're retired and getting Social Security now, you should plan for getting a 20% cut on your Social Security benefits starting in or around 2033. For anybody collecting benefits now, I contend, and the numbers tell me, benefits will be cut by 20%. Because that trust funds are going to zero. Doesn't mean Social Security is bankrupt. It just means there's no more savings account. And outgo cannot exceed income. That's the rules. Can Congress change the rules? Can Congress allow Social Security to borrow money to make benefits? Sure they can. Will they? I don't know. But I'm kind of trying to prepare for reasonable case, if not worst case. Does that make sense? So my message to anybody who's retired, who's currently getting benefits, or is about to in the next couple of years, 2033, those benefits will be cut by approximately 20%. I've seen everything from 15 to 20. It's in there somewhere. We need to plan for that today. And then the demographics add up to that. Okay? And again, this is just a way of saying the same thing. 40 to 1 to 3 to 1 to 1 to 1. Trust funds were being built up until about 2020. And now they're being exhausted and depleted and will run out by 2033. And this is something that I had to look into pretty deep. Your life expectancy, okay? If you go up online and check various actuarial tables, this, that, and the other, if you're 62 today, your life expectancy is between 82 and 84 years of age. Well, that's an average, which means a lot of men won't reach that, and some will exceed that. Ron's 84. Starting his benefits at 62 has worked out great, right? Women live longer than men because biology, right? So, as I said, if you and I were to start taking benefits today, when we're 69 or 70, those benefits get reduced, and yet we may still live another 10, 12 years with those reduced benefits. So if I have a financial plan, a retirement plan, based on some assumptions about Social Security and my life expectancy, I gotta readjust. I have to redo my plan and see what this haircut costs me. Okay? And we're encouraging people to do it now. I've mentioned this to some folks, and say, well, we'll wait and see. If you wait and see what happens in 2033, you lost 7, 8 years of being able to do something to prepare for 2033. And this will be the only political statement I'll make all day. But Congress has demonstrated a willingness to kick the can down the road. So there are things they could have done 20, 30 years ago to address this. There are things they could have done 10 years ago to address this. There's things they can do today, but they haven't. So I don't know what they'll do between now and 2033, and I don't know if they'll do anything. So we're encouraging our clients to get this stuff taken care of, to start examining and making adjustments now. There's 3 things I've heard people talk about with Social Security. One is, how can I pay the least amount of tax? So a lot of people have an agenda of minimizing their taxes. Some people talk about, how can I maximize my lifetime benefit, right? And then the question we ask is, that I haven't heard anybody else address, is, how can I incorporate this and maximize my wealth? And sometimes, and each of those can give you a different answer as to when should I start taking my benefits, will depend a lot on what you're trying to do. Because as you approach retirement age, you've got IRAs that you might have to start taking required minimum distributions out of. Now today it's not till age 75. So how does that adjust your timing of taking Social Security? Do you have IRAs you want to convert to Roth IRAs? There's taxable events. So even in retirement, there are taxable events that you have to deal with that impact your Social Security, and that Social Security impacts. So if your goal is, I want to minimize my taxes, that might take you in one direction. If you want to maximize your lifetime benefits, that's hinging largely on, do you live to your life expectancy? Do you live past what I'll call the break-even age? We'll come to that in a minute. But the question, should I take benefits at 62, or at 67, or 70? Largely contingent upon, mostly contingent upon, how are you going to live, right? Because if you wait till 70 but you die at 68, you have not maximized your benefits. You've got none, okay? If you start at 62 and live to 90, you might have been better off waiting till 70. And I'll show you those break-even points here in a moment, okay? But knowing your life expectancy and then assuming whether you'll reach it or not has a lot to do with the decision you make. And finally, maximizing wealth is, how can I use these cash flows from Social Security to add to my existing investments, or to slow the rate at which I have to draw from them? And a lot of that will depend on how good an investor you are. And there's a break-even rate of return on that as well that we'll talk about. So these are kind of the three directions. So you've got people who are retired, people who retire in the next 10 years, people who retire later than that, and what you're trying to accomplish: minimize taxes, maximize benefits, maximize wealth. Now the perfect solution is to do all 3. Perfect is hard to accomplish, optimal. If we can get 2 out of the 3, we're doing pretty good. And again, that's going to be based on some assumptions. All right? So if you're already receiving benefits, what's your 20% haircut look like? Your benefits. How does it impact your IRA redemptions? You wind up taking more than your required minimum distribution to make up the slack. What will that do to your taxes? Okay? Game it out now. Game it out now. If you need help gaming it out, Ron, call me. It's just a spreadsheet. We'll figure it out. Okay? If you're about to retire, age, work, family. Okay? If you're going to minimize your taxes, up to 85% of your benefits are taxable based on your adjusted gross income. Okay? And that cutoff is like $20,000 or something like that. So 85% of your Social Security benefit is taxable as a rule. Okay? Have to factor that. What if you want to maximize your lifetime benefits and say, how can I get the most out of the plan? If I claim at age 62, in our example, I'm going to get $1,400 a month, almost $17,000 a year. Okay? If I wait to age 67, I'll get $24,000 a year. But I have to live to age 77, 78 to get as much total as I would have gotten at age 62. So from 67, I've got to live another decade to break even. If I live past age 78, I'd rather be, I want to wait till age 67, right? If I wait till age 70, where I get $30,000 a year, I have to live past 81 to be better off than if I had started taking benefits at 62. Okay? But if I live past 81, then I'm ahead waiting for my benefits until age 70 versus 62. Now these are made up benefit numbers. I won't know for sure about you or about myself until I plug the numbers in. But roughly 67 to 77 is a decade, 70 to 80. So as a rough rule of thumb, you have to believe you'll live at least 10 years past the age or the date you start claiming benefits to be better off than starting at 62. So if you're healthy and your weight is good and your blood pressure is good and you don't have diabetes and you live that healthy lifestyle, you say, I'm going to live to 90, I'd wait. Unless you want to try and maximize your wealth. Because if you start at 62, there's a monthly cash flow for 5 years and then 8 years that you can invest to compound if you don't have to spend it, right? So if you wait until age 70, using the monthly numbers of 2480, from 70 to 85, which is about the life expectancy, you will receive $476,000 in benefits. If you turn around and invest those at 3.75%, you get $636,000. You'll have an account worth that. If you claim at age 62, for $1,400 a month, at age 85, you get $636,000. So 85 is the break-even age if you're invested to get 3.75%. Okay? So if you're an investor and you don't think you can do better than 3.75%, then you might just wait till age 70, especially if you think you're going to live past age 85, right? Because you'll be better off. However, if you think you can earn more than 4, in this case I've used 7, same monthly benefit, same total received, but because you've compounded for an extra 8 years at 7%, which is almost a double, not quite, right? Your total wealth when until age 70 is still 830, which is better than the 600, but starting earlier gives you another $150,000 wealth. So that's an argument for starting at age 62, right? Because that money can either be added to your existing wealth or it keeps you from having to take it out. It lets your IRA compound for another 8 years before you need it to support your lifestyle or what have you. So start at 62 if you think you won't reach your life expectancy of 83, 84, or if you're skeptical. Start at 62 if you can turn around and invest that money. If you can't, if you think you'll live long and you need the money now, or you don't need the money now and can wait, then starting at age 70 makes sense. Assumptions. There's assumptions all up and down the line, which is why it's tough to come up with a general rule of thumb, all right? But the break-even age is about 10 years after you start. If you reasonably expect to live at least 10 years past when you file for Social Security, waiting makes sense. If you're not sure or you don't want to make that bet, because the odds, right, then starting taking benefits earlier makes sense. If you think that you can use the money and add to your wealth or keep money invested, starting early makes sense if you know how to invest for at least a 4 to 5% return, anything over 3.75. If you're not sure how to invest, I know, talk to us. That's what we do. But that's the assumption you have to be willing to make. I've got to believe I can make 6% in order to start file for Social Security early. Here's the real rub, and what maybe just makes this simple. This might be the one rule of thumb that you can just live by. The monthly benefits you receive will reduce in proportion to your earnings from work. So if you're still working and collecting a salary, your monthly benefits from Social Security will reduce until age 70. At age 70, you'll get age 67, full retirement age, you'll get your full benefit, okay? And your benefit goes to zero pretty rapidly. So if I'm still working full-time at age 62, and I'm making, I think the break even is $80,000 a year, I get zero Social Security benefit, even though I file for it. So that cash flow that I talked about for maximizing my wealth, it isn't there. It's almost like they saw me coming and said, well, we don't want you to make too much money. So while you're working, if you've got adjusted gross, if you've got W-2, it's not AGI, it's W-2 from work, in excess of $70,000 a year, your Social Security benefit goes to zero. Now they say that they will credit that to your Social Security benefits at age 67 or when you stop working, but I couldn't find a formula for how that works. So I'm not quite sure how they'll make that up for you. So that's the promise. But the reality is I don't have that cash flow to maximize the wealth as long as I'm working. So if there's a rule of thumb, it might be wait to claim your benefits until you're done working. And then if that's prior to age 70, then you start looking at, do I want to wait till age 70 to file for benefits or not? But if you're working at age 62, making more than $70,000 a year, I'd wait. If you're working at age 65, making more than $70,000 a year, I'd wait. At 67, they'll start paying you your full benefit whether you're still working or not, right? So the decision on when to stop working may be the one thing that you can hinge all the decision making on. While I'm earning more than $70,000 a year from employment, I'm not filing for Social Security. When I quit, then the rest of this decision tree that I was walking through becomes applicable, right? And then all the other stuff. What we haven't talked at all about is spousal benefits, whether your spouse has Social Security benefits, whether you have children who might need survivor benefits and what ages they are, right? And those all complicate it considerably. How much, when should your spouse file for benefits? Should it be before or after you do? Who has the greater benefit? All this stuff gets worked in. But I think these are the fundamental questions that if you get an answer to, can help make the rest of those decisions simple. You can't really worry about those until you deal with this. At what age should I start taking them and why? So key takeaways. One, it's not your money, right? The sooner we stop thinking that I'm owed or my money or it's my money, the more rational we can become. This needs to be a rational process, not an emotional process. And when people start off by saying, it's my money, I'm entitled to it, that's an emotional statement. Okay? So we got to get rid of that. Trust funds are going to zero out, so whatever benefits on your Social Security statement is going to be cut by 20%, give or take. Have you gotten your Social Security statement? Have you gone and gotten it? A lot of good information on this statement, right? But to look on here and see how much you paid in, you can determine your lifetime earnings according to Social Security. You can see how much has been put into your account, how much you contributed, your Social Security taxes, what your employers contributed. Turns out when you look at that, I get my money back within about 4 years of filing for Social Security. So even if I think it's my money, I get my money back in 4 years. right? The total taxes I've paid in I will receive in benefits within about 4 years of filing for Social Security. It's not my money. Now, it turns out the reason, and if you do an annual compounding, if you calculate an average annual return on that, it looks pretty good until you realize that every dollar you send in your employer, you get an immediate double. If you only count the growth of, if you look at what your total benefits are over your lifetime, if you want to estimate that, right? Your total lifetime benefits divided by the total contributions, not my money, but mine and the employers, and discount that, it comes out to about 3.75% a year, which oddly enough is where that break even is on maximizing your wealth. So the investment returns on this, there are none. It's not your money.